I never thought I'd be the one writing something like this. Honestly, even typing the words feels surreal, like I've stumbled into someone else's nightmare. But it's my story, and the weight of it has been crushing me for months. Maybe sharing it will make me feel a little less insane. Her name was Lena. She wasn't just my girlfriend, she was the first person I ever truly imagined spending my life with. We met 2.5 years ago at a friend's birthday party. She was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone, looking like she wanted to be anywhere else. I remember cracking some stupid joke about how parties were overrated, and for the first time that night, she laughed. She had this way of laughing that made everyone around her feel lighter. It wasn't just the sound, it was how her eyes lit up, how her whole face softened. That laugh pulled me in instantly. We started dating not long after. At first, it was casual. Coffee dates, long walks, hours texting until 2 in the morning. But it grew fast. Lena wasn't just beautiful. She was smart, ambitious, with this sharp edge of sarcasm that made every conversation feel electric. I felt lucky every time I looked at her. For a long time, our relationship was the best thing in my life. We moved in together after a year, into a small but cozy apartment. We spent weekends making pancakes, binge-watching bad reality shows, talking about everything from stupid memes to our dreams for the future. She talked about wanting to open her own boutique one day. I talked about saving enough to buy a house. She said we made a good team. I believed her. Introducing Lena to my family was a big step for me. My relationship with my dad had always been complicated. He was successful, wealthy, respected, the kind of man people admired from the outside. But inside our family, he was distant, cold, and sometimes downright cruel. Growing up, I always felt like I was chasing a version of myself he wanted me to be, and never quite getting there. Despite that, I wanted him to like Lena. I wanted her to see the best version of my family, even if I knew deep down that version was a facade. When they first met, things seemed fine. We went to dinner at his house, a big, modern place with more glass than walls, the kind of home that screams money. My dad was charming, like he always is, in front of strangers. He asked Lena about her studies, her career, her hobbies. She answered politely, laughing at his dry jokes, sipping wine. That night, Lena told me she found my dad intimidating but impressive. She said she could see where I got my stubbornness. I brushed it off, happy they got along. Over time, Lena became a regular at family gatherings. Birthdays, Christmas, the occasional Sunday dinner. My mom adored her. My dad, well, he seemed neutral, sometimes even approving in his own distant way. I thought that was a win. But there were moments that stuck in the back of my mind. Times when I caught Lena listening a little too intently when my dad talked about his business, his investments, his travels. Times when her eyes lit up in a way that felt different. I didn't think much of it then. Why would I? I trusted her. I loved her. Looking back now, maybe that's when the cracks first appeared. At first, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Lena and I were living together, making plans, doing all the normal couple things. But then little details started piling up. The kind of details you don't pay attention to at first, until they become impossible to ignore. The first thing I noticed was her wardrobe. Lena always liked fashion, but she was also practical. She worked retail, and most of her paychecks went toward rent, bills, and saving for that future boutique she always talked about.
So when she started coming home with new designer clothes, shoes, and handbags, I was confused. "Did you splurge?" I asked one night as she unpacked a brand new purse from its box. She smiled sheepishly and said, "Just a little treat for myself. Don't worry about it." Except a little treat turned into multiple treats. New jewelry, spa treatments, expensive perfumes, all things I knew she couldn't afford on her salary. When I pressed, she'd wave it off with a vague, "I had some extra savings," or "I got a good deal." At the same time, her phone habits changed. Lena used to leave her phone lying around all the time, but suddenly it was glued to her hand. Notifications came in constantly, and she'd tilt the screen away from me when she typed. If I walked into the room, she'd quickly lock it. I told myself not to be paranoid. Everyone deserves privacy, right? Still, something about the secrecy gnawed at me. Then came the dinners. My dad started inviting us over more often, sometimes just Lena. He'd call and say, "Why don't you join us for dinner tonight?" But when I said I was busy with work, he'd add, "That's fine, Lena can still come." At first, I didn't think much of it. My dad had always been controlling, so maybe he just liked her company. But as the invitations kept coming, I started feeling uneasy. One evening, Lena came home from one of those dinners with a necklace I'd never seen before, a delicate gold chain with a diamond pendant. "Wow," I said, trying to hide my confusion. "Where'd you get that?" She hesitated, just for a second, then smiled. "It was a gift, from your dad. He said it was a thank you for helping him organize some stuff at his office." My stomach dropped. "He gave you jewelry? Isn't that weird?" She laughed it off. "Don't be dramatic. It's just a gift. He's generous, that's all." But it didn't feel like just a gift. It felt like a line being crossed. I tried to brush it aside, but the doubts grew louder. Lena started dressing up more often, even when she said she was just going to see a friend. She had new makeup, new heels. I'd ask where she was going, and she'd give vague answers. One night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I glanced at it. A text notification lit up the screen. "Can't wait to see you again. Same time tomorrow?" No name, just a number. My heart pounded. When I confronted her later, she said it was just a coworker joking around. But I knew it wasn't. Then there was my dad. He started treating me differently, more dismissive, less like a son, more like a nuisance. He made offhand comments about taking care of people who appreciate it and responsibility. At the time, I didn't fully understand what he meant. But deep down, I think I already knew something was terribly wrong. The signs were there. I just didn't want to believe them.
It happened on a Tuesday night. I'll never forget it because it was so ordinary at first. I'd just gotten home from work, exhausted, ready to collapse on the couch. Lena was in the shower, her phone charging on the dresser. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. But when her screen lit up, I caught the preview of a message that made my blood run cold. "I'll bring the cash tomorrow. Same hotel. Don't be late. D." My dad's initial. My heart stopped. I stared at the screen, praying it was some horrible coincidence, some other D. But deep down, I already knew. My hands were shaking as I picked up the phone. The message thread was open. No password protection, no attempt to hide it beyond locking her screen. And there it was. Weeks of messages. Explicit, flirty, detailed. My dad and my girlfriend arranging meetups, talking about money, about gifts, about things they'd done together. Words I never imagined I'd read, attached to the two people I trusted the most. My stomach lurched. I actually ran to the bathroom sink and vomited. When Lena came out of the shower wrapped in a towel, she froze. She saw her phone in my hand. She saw my face, and she knew. "Wait,"
she started, her voice trembling. I cut her off. How long? My voice didn't even sound like mine. She tried to reach for me, but I stepped back. How long? I shouted. Her eyes filled with tears. It wasn't supposed to happen. It just did. I needed help, and your dad, he offered help by sleeping with him, by taking his money. You're seriously going to stand there and justify this? She started crying, babbling excuses. I didn't mean to hurt you. He promised me stability. He said he'd invest in my business, that he'd help me in ways you couldn't. I couldn't even listen. My chest felt like it was caving in. The betrayal wasn't just hers. It was his, too. My father, the man who was supposed to guide me, protect me, show me what it meant to be a man. Instead, he'd taken the one person I loved most and turned her into, what? His mistress? I stormed out of the apartment. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I drove straight to my dad's house, my hands gripping the wheels so tightly I thought they might break. When I walked in, he was in his study, sipping whiskey like nothing was wrong. You knew I'd find out eventually, I said, my voice hoarse. He looked at me, calm, almost bored. I wondered when you'd grow a spine. My rage nearly boiled over. How could you? She was my girlfriend. I trusted you. He set down his glass, leaned back, and said, You'll understand someday. Relationships are fragile. Money and power, those are real. She wanted more than you could give. I simply provided it. I wanted to hit him, to break something, to scream until the neighbors called the cops. But all I could do was stand there, shaking, while the reality sunk in. My father had stolen my girlfriend. She had let him, and the two of them had destroyed everything I thought I knew about love, loyalty, and family. That was the night something inside me broke.
I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. I drove aimlessly until dawn, parking in some empty lot, staring at the steering wheel while my thoughts tore me apart. Every memory I had with Lena replayed itself in my head. Every laugh, every kiss, every late-night talk about the future. All of it suddenly felt poisoned. When I finally returned to the apartment, she was waiting. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair a tangled mess. Please, can we talk? She whispered. I didn't want to. I wanted to walk right past her, pack my things, and never look back. But I sat down anyway, maybe because some part of me still needed answers. How long? I asked again, quieter this time. She hesitated, then said, Almost a year. A year. A year of lies, a year of pretending, a year of looking me in the eye every morning and every night while she was sneaking around with my father. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was too insane to process. You've been in my bed, living in my apartment, telling me you love me while meeting him in hotels? Tears streamed down her face. I didn't plan it, I swear. At first, it was just dinners. He offered advice, financial help. I was scared about money, about my future. And then it happened. I felt trapped, but he kept promising he'd support me, that he'd make my dreams real. I didn't want to lose you, but I didn't know how to say no to him either. Her words twisted the knife deeper. So you chose both, I said bitterly. You used me for love and him for money. Perfect setup. She shook her head furiously. No, it wasn't like that. I loved you. I still love you. Stop, I snapped. You don't get to use that word anymore. Silence hung heavy between us. I stood up, grabbed a duffel bag, and began throwing clothes into it. Wait, please, she begged, grabbing my arm. We can fix it.
I pulled away. There's nothing to fix. You made your choice. I left her there, sobbing on the couch. I don't know if it was guilt, regret, or just fear of losing the safety net she thought she had, but none of it mattered anymore. Later that week, I met with my dad again. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted him to deny it, to show some shred of humanity. Instead, he doubled down. She's an adult. She made her choice, just like I did. You were never going to give her the life she wanted. You're young, broke, still trying to figure things out. I gave her stability. Stability? I spat. You mean you bought her, like she was just another investment? He didn't even flinch. The world runs on transactions, son. One day you'll understand that. That was the moment I realized I'd lost more than a girlfriend. I'd lost any illusion of respect for the man who raised me. He wasn't a father anymore, just a stranger with my last name. I walked out of his house and didn't look back. I blocked his number, packed up the rest of my things, and moved in with a friend until I could get my own place. Lena tried calling, texting, even showing up at my job once. I ignored her. She and my father deserved each other. I was done.
The weeks that followed felt like living in a fog. I went to work, I ate, I slept, but everything was mechanical, empty. My mind replayed the betrayal on loop, each memory cutting fresh wounds. I'd wake up in the middle of the night reaching for Lena, only to remember she was gone. Or worse, that she wasn't really gone. She was with him, my father. At first, I hated them both with a kind of fire I'd never felt before. But over time, the fire burned down into something else. Exhaustion. I couldn't live in that anger forever. It was eating me alive. So I started small. I cut ties. I blocked Lena everywhere, deleted every photo, threw out her things. The apartment felt emptier, but at least it was mine again. I told my mom the truth. That was one of the hardest conversations of my life. She broke down, horrified, but not entirely surprised. She'd lived with my father's selfishness for years. I always knew he'd hurt you somehow, she said quietly, but not like this. Friends rallied around me. Some said, "You're better off without her." Others said, "Your dad's a monster." Both were true, but neither dulled the sting. Still, their support reminded me that I wasn't completely alone. Months passed. Lena tried one last time to reach out, sending a long email full of apologies and explanations. She claimed she'd ended things with my father, that she'd been manipulated, that she missed me. I didn't reply. And my dad? He never apologized, never even acknowledged the destruction he caused. That was who he was. Cold, detached, always putting power and money above people. For the first time, I saw him clearly, and I wanted nothing to do with him ever again. The hardest part wasn't losing Lena or even my father. It was losing the version of myself that believed in them. I had to rebuild from scratch. My trust, my boundaries, my sense of worth. But slowly, I did. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into friendships. I learned how to enjoy being alone. I started therapy. For the first time in years, I felt like I was living for me, not chasing someone else's approval. Do I still think about it? Of course. Some nights the images come back, the words, the betrayal, but now it feels more like a scar than an open wound. And if you asked me whether I'd ever forgive them, the answer is no. Forgiveness isn't owed, and they don't deserve it. What I do know is this: betrayal doesn't define me. It broke me, yes, but it also forced me to rebuild stronger. I lost a girlfriend and a father, but I found myself. And that
at least, is something worth holding on to.